What is closure and how do you get it? I'm Lisa from Lisa's Sanctuary. I share my healing journey in the hopes of contributing to yours. I share my personal lived experience with trauma and healing from it so that you might resonate, feel validated, feel not so alone. And I teach you how I'm moving through this, how I move through the emotions, how I move forward along my healing journey, sort of how I got from there to where I am today. Now, closure is a buzzword around the healing space, around the trauma space, because we all want it. And closure means that you have a completeness or a resolution to an event, to a situation, to a circumstance that allows you to leave it behind and move on. And not constantly think about it, having those thoughts churning around and around, those things that you wake up in the morning thinking, and the things that keep you up at night. Those are the things you need closure on. Now, closure can be tricky because how do you get it? And I'll tell you a story. I experienced childhood abuse, and as I disclosed when I was about 12, went through the court process, retracted my statement, went again to make a police statement, and decided to go ahead and press charges because I was seeking that closure. There was something that felt, not right or not finished or not done. And I felt like it was my responsibility to put him in jail or, just bring charges against him so that another child would not have to go through this. I thought that court would be my closure, and it was far from it. It was honestly the most traumatic experience of my life. And if I could go back, I wouldn't opt to go to court again, because in hindsight, it was a whole heap of trauma for an acquittal, and I got no closure out of it. And so I've spent my, my whole life up until now, well, a few years ago really, trying to find that closure. And it can be difficult to get closure if the perpetrator has since passed away, if you don't feel that you got any justice, if you weren't believed, if nobody knows. So how do you get closure if you're sitting in that situation? So for me, I got closure by pretending I was talking to him. And it's tough, but it did bring about a sense of closure for me that was so helpful and so beneficial along my healing journey. And so what you can do with it is you can imagine yourself sitting in a chair, and you can imagine that you're putting another chair in front of you. And if that feels too confronting to imagine that your perpetrator or the abuser in that chair in front of you, you can put a screen up, or you can imagine that there's a support person with you. And when you feel comfortable, I want you to tell that person how you feel and what their actions and their behaviors have caused for you, how unfair it is, how wrong it was what they did. And if you don't feel that you can say that out loud to begin with, whisper it. Just whisper it to them. But really imagine that they're there and that they have to listen to what you have to say. They can't speak, they can't interrupt, they can't hurt you, but you are letting them know how you feel and what they've done to you. And I've had conversations where I've sat and I've said, what you did was so wrong. You stole my childhood. You made me feel in all sorts of different ways that I acted out for years. I've used substances to numb my feelings and to try and forget about events. There were things that I went through that you put me through that should never have happened. And you can talk to them like that and yell and swear if you want to, if that's what you're comfortable with. There is no right and wrong with healing. It's all about whatever works for you. This may not work for you, as it has for me. You can tweak it. Like I said, you can put a screen in front of someone. or between you. I mean, you can imagine a support person's there. You can imagine that you are big and strong and that you are towering over them, because when we feel really vulnerable and weak with someone, it creates an imprint that we kind of get stuck with. So if you see that person as they are from your adult point of view, you may find that they're a whole heap less scarier than what they used to appear like, especially if there's some time and some distance between you now. But that's how you get closure, is by, even if they're deceased, even if you never want to speak to them again, even if you didn't get justice, tell them how you feel. Tell them what it did to you. And then tell them you're letting it go, because you can no longer be affected by their behavior and their actions from your past. And it's time to move on. It's time to move forward. It's time to heal, because that's a much better space. It's a much more peaceful state to be in than waking up through the night thinking about it keeping you up at night. Another thing that you can do to get some sort of closure is you can change the ending. And I wouldn't recommend doing this if you are, say, before the court and you do need memory recall with certain events, or, you're still just needing it for any type of reason. Imagine yourself in that event. And before we start that, what I want you to do actually is, you can imagine that it's playing on a movie screen and that you're sitting watching the movie screen. You do not have to play the event. You do not have to relive anything. You do not have to be in there. It's just watching it like it's a movie. That's a dissociation when we're looking at a trauma. And then as it moves into where the bad parts would come up, you can change the ending. For example, with people who were bullied as children at school, I have seen them walk into the playground and then beat all of the bullies up. They change the ending. Or you can go in there and nobody turns up that day. Or you can be at that event and then you are assertive and you say, "Get away from me, I'm leaving now," and you turn around and leave and you go someplace else. It's your imagination. You can change the ending. You can change how it happened in your memory. And like I said, if you need it for memory recall, I would not recommend doing this. But if you no longer need the memory recall and you're ready to just let it go and to not be so focused, so stuck in those imprints, in those trauma imprints from your past, change it. Change how it happens. Change the ending. So that's what closure is. That's how you get it. You can do this on your own. And I do share these videos so that you can do it on your own. I'm absolutely available by booking a session with me for me to guide you and support you through completing traumas, moving past events, and even stripping the negative emotion from your past memories. I use hypnosis. It is that powerful. It can strip the negative emotion from your past memories so that you're no longer carrying it around with you rent-free in your head. Closure. It's really important along your healing journey, but not very, we all get confused about how we get it, how you go about it, what it means and what it feels like. Closure for me feels like I can talk about those events without being triggered. I can talk about them without crying, without feeling any kind of angst. I just talk about it like it was, like I was eating breakfast yesterday morning with a friend. I can refer to those events without having that emotional charge anymore. That's what healing is to me, and that's what closure means for me. So if you resonate with what I say, or you do want to work with me, you can absolutely look me up on internet, social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Other than that, have a great day. You are significant because you are, and I love you because you exist.